Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Charles, and my story starts here in Buffalo, where I came to invent vaccines and anti-infectives for the 21st century. I have since bet my career and inspired my most accomplished friends to join me in solving a looming problem facing pneumonia vaccines, and that is they are becoming increasingly obsolete. But more specifically, what do I mean by that? Despite there being 2 generations of pneumonia vaccines in the US alone, there are still over 160,000 cases of invasive disease, leading to sizable deaths and economic burden, with a far grimmer picture globally. It's horrible. Beyond that, this can be equated to one fact, and only one. Current vaccines and anti-infectives cannot prevent the disease of all 95 plus types of this bacteria or their actual diseases that they cause. Here at Abcombi, we are providing the world's first and only universal pneumonia vaccine, protecting against all 95 plus, while actually preventing the diseases that they cause in a simple and low-cost manufacturing process. But for the technically inclined, we have 2 proteins universally conserved across all the bacteria, upregulated only during disease, co-formulated with 24 sugars in a liposomal alum-based adjuvant. But enough of that. Looking ahead, our market is expected to grow to $10 billion by 2020, the single most lucrative vaccine market in the world, with the only entrant, Pfizer, being indicated similar to us. And the chief takeaway from them is they only provide protection against 13 of the 95 at a high price point and do not actually prevent disease. But recognizing this clinical unmet need, many people are trying to enter this space with the exact same clinical strategy as Pfizer, with only moderate improvements to the manufacturing. The result of this is a reality that they cannot scale past 20 serotypes. That is simply a scientific reality. But beyond that, our strategy has been vetted on a global platform, specifically through entry into the Johnson & Johnson incubator, publication in world-leading journals, and most notably, our recent acceptance as a Wellcome Trust Translational Fund finalist, which selects medical interventions that have the greatest potential to impact global health. Also, in less than a year, we have attracted over $600,000 in federal funding from the NIH to help us bridge our product scaling, and we have an exclusive license from the University of Buffalo for formulation and our actual antigens. But where does this actually put us? This places us with best-in-class results vetted by the scientific community in head-to-head comparisons with Prevnar in all accepted animal models, all disease models, with 100% protection against targeted serotypes. This is the first of its kind. And now we're in the process of scaling. We're getting ready for a clinical trial. That's where we're at. But largely, our single best asset is our team. We are hardworking and energetic, yet we're augmented by a best-in-field advisory team, whom I want to highlight: Margie McGlynn, a Buffalo native, a University of Buffalo graduate, and previously the president of vaccines and anti-infectives for Merck. Through her, we've recruited in the field's best vaccine immunologist in Stanley Plotkin, rockstar advisors such as Bob Langer, and assembled a consulting team from all major pharmaceutical companies to address us in the areas that we need. But for today, I kept it light on the clinical trials. I'd like to reserve that for the questions. But I want to talk about our strategic partnerships with the CDC and really how our lead indication, our pneumonia vaccine, will impact this society. Looking at our strategy to go post-phase 1 to license, which we are in conversations with numerous pharmaceutical companies, this is a typical deal structure we will see. This equates to something very simple: unprecedented amount of capital coming into this community as unlike any before. But more broadly, I said in the beginning, we started in Buffalo and we will continue to grow in Buffalo. Specifically, as we take this license, we plan to reinvest and hire strategic people in areas of manufacturing and life sciences. But with the final thought, it's why Abcombi? Why Buffalo? It's the dream that we can solve a pressing global problem that has undoubtedly affected each and every one of you, and that is pneumonia. Thank you.
Great job, Charles. Sorry,
Thank you.
I misspelled the name there, my friend. I apologize. Okay, who's going to kick things off here? Uh-oh. Erica.
Yes.
Push that button. Thank you.
A couple questions. So, number one, you mentioned that there's like 82 strains that are not currently covered by the existing solution. So, what percent, are those extremely rare, or, so what percentage of the bacterial population is that? And then secondly, I don't really know much about the overall market for pneumonia vaccines, because I know it's not a terribly common one, and also people are, worried about adding more vaccines to their schedule. So is it like a once-in-a-lifetime thing? Is it every year, like flu? Thanks.
Good question. We'll separate that into more of what we're actually solving versus to the later stage questions. First off, the pneumonia vaccine is how we simplify it. It's Prevnar. It's the pneumococcal disease. Think of meningitis, middle ear infection to people who have children. It's the single largest vaccine market in the world, dominated exclusively by Pfizer. But this is something that you see people indicate at their children. It's required. It's a vaccine for children. And it was recently approved for adults 50 and above. So it's a massive market that's growing. But to your second point of the 82 pluses are going, originally it used to not be a problem. When it was first introduced, it's 80% of invasive disease. But clinicians have demonstrated globally that it is simply shifting around it. Think of the flu, but for bacteria. You simply can't account for it. But even beyond that, its established efficacy is not that great. If you look at invasive disease such as middle ear infection, ravages the globe with over 4 million cases, over 4 million or 1 million deaths of children. And also something to let you know, and I'll conclude this question. Because of the failures of this vaccine, Streptococcus pneumonia, the bacteria that causes these disease, is the single largest causative agent of antibiotic prescriptions in the world. That's where you see the economic burden. So there is a distinct clinical need. Yes, ma'am.
Michael, you described this in your interview, posted that it was what you called an add-on vaccine. Could you expand on that?
Sorry, what was that?
You called it, I think you referred to it as an add-on vaccine. Could you explain that in
Yes.
a little more detail? Thank you.
Yes. So originally when we started in the development of our vaccines, we discovered some universal proteins. We were great. We adopted the strategy to be an add-on to Prevnar. But we have since realized that we'd like to control the fate of the market because we had a solution to their biggest limitation, which is the glycosylations of the polysaccharides. That prevents them from scaling. So we are a multifold solution from their scalability and the proteins. So we realized that our add-on, we could add more value to global health if we did it ourselves. Does that answer your question?
Technical answer?
Yes, from the business perspective, originally we were looking at on an add-on to be indicated to the elderly. However, the market opportunity is far larger if you look to be indicated in the children. But to be indicated from the children, you have to provide protection against the polysaccharides. So we shifted our scientific to address the largest possible business market for a vaccine.
Good answer. Yeah. Who wants to kick in next? Taylor.
Yes.
Has this been peer-reviewed yet? And if so, what have been some of the findings?
Good question.
Very good question. It's been peer-reviewed in 3 leading journals, Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, arguably one of the top 3 journals in the world, Science Journal paper, Science Advances, and a number of other series. The findings are really more of a surprise that we can think of vaccines against this bacteria in a new way. It used to be just prevent them from touching us. That will hopefully get around it. Now we're saying, let's prevent the ones that can cause the disease the most. We don't want them to touch you. But the ones that are equally likely to make you sick, there's no reason to scale up the cost of a vaccine. Just protect them from causing disease. So we provide 2-point protection. So it's been well received, to answer your point.
Okay. Melissa. You got it?
Which one is it? Okay.
There you go.
In your presentation, you mentioned that the IP rights are owned by the University of Buffalo. And I'm not as familiar in the life sciences, but does that become an issue if you were to sell the company? How does that work? No,
ma'am. That is not quite an issue because the IP office here in Buffalo has been wonderful. We have actually hardline defined what will happen post-phase, post-sub-licensing of every step. So we have the rights to commercialize it, and if we do make money, which would be a big investment to this whole community, it's well defined what will come of that.
And then my other question
Yes,
was that you're also up for another award with Welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that prevent you from residing here, or how does that work?
I'll give a very quick answer. Actually, that was done in the past, but due to Brexit, they reduced their funding amount and they nominated a more established company of a medtech device. So only one award winner from a traditional 8 winner.
So that means you can stay, right? Great
Yes.
job, Charles.
Thank
Great
you so
job.
much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
guys.